If you're a language enthusiast or just curious about how languages work, you are going to love this. Today, we're diving into a really interesting difference between two languages, between English and Spanish. But in case this is the first video you're watching on my channel, my name is Paula. I grew up speaking Spanish and Catalan, but at some point in my life, I fell in love with the English language. I fell in love with the whole process of language learning. So now I'm here helping you also enjoy the process. So let's start with the basics. When we talk about motion events, we usually describe two key components. Path, which is the direction of the motion. So let's say, for example, into, out of, across, etc. And manner is the way, how this motion is performed. So for example, running, walking, crawling, etc. Now here's where it gets interesting, because different languages have different ways of packaging this information. English is what we call a satellite framed language. So in English, we usually express the manner of motion in the main verb, but the path is expressed in what's called a satellite, which normally is a preposition. The English language is very good at this. It's very good at compacting information into one unit. So here, for example, to run into. And this is very common in English. Now, Spanish, on the other hand, is a verb-framed language, which means that in Spanish, the path of the motion is expressed in the verb itself. It's embedded in the verb. And the manner is either omitted if it's not relevant information or expressed outside the verb. I still remember when I first learned about this, it was just so interesting. I still remember it was this class, a translation module I had at uni, and I found it fascinating. I really like to compare different languages and how different languages pack certain pieces of information. It's just fascinating to me. And so it's also very interesting when you are learning a foreign language to pay attention to these little things. Now, I know this is confusing. It takes a while to wrap your head around it. If this is something you are interested in, I actually created a PDF for you, which is completely free. You only need to click on the link in the description, or I will put it in the comments. So if you'd like to sort of consolidate this and have a summary, also new examples, you might want to do that. As a translator, contrastive linguistics is something I'm very, very passionate about. So if you are also into languages, if you're interested in linguistics, let me know, because I would love to make this into maybe a little series where we compare English and Spanish. I feel like there isn't really content about this on the internet, and it's just something that I find fascinating. You don't have to be a translator to learn about this, because it's very useful to see the differences in style, which is something that you don't normally learn in regular lessons, because obviously when you're learning a foreign language, you are focusing only on that language. But I think it's very interesting, and personally, this is something that I always pay attention to when I'm talking to native speakers, when I'm reading a book, when I'm listening to a podcast. I'm always paying attention to this, and I'm always paying attention to how different speakers use this. You know, contrastive linguistics is based on research and how we use languages. But when it comes to certain languages like Spanish and English, which are so widespread, sometimes it's difficult to make generalizations. Obviously, there are differences. And so I'm always so interested in seeing how I get to a rule, and then the rule is sort of broken because I see a speaker that packages information in a very specific way, because it's not the way we learn in textbooks. Because I think it's the beautiful thing about languages that you have variety, and that different speakers make a language their own in a way. And you know, it's interesting because this happens with your L1, it also happens with your L2. Like the way I speak Spanish, for example, as someone that also speaks Catalan, it's unique because I also speak Catalan, but that shouldn't be something bad. It should be embraced as something that's beautiful, that, you know, different languages can coexist. And also my English, I've worked really hard on my accent, and I've worked really hard to have a fluent speech, that my speech is fluent and can be easily understood. But I'm also very aware that English is not my L1. And I know that there will always be a little Spanish in my English. And that's okay. It could be the way I pronounce a word, it could be my syntax. But I'm not really bothered because I do speak other languages, and I really like the fact, I really like the idea of making a language your own. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you would like to see more about contrastive linguistics. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. See you.